Okay, so I'll start off with what we're calling this. We call it IRIS, which is opposite of Siri, and stands for Inquiry, Reporting, and Intelligence Services. This is the product. And this is the agenda. So I'll get started with a bit of the intro. So who are NatWest Boxed? Our vision is to power the UK's best embedded financial experience. And we're partnering with businesses to help them to deepen customer relationships with our easy to integrate, scalable, and compliant banking proposition. And our journey starts with a joint venture with our partner, Videno, who are a leading European BaaS, banking as a service, player. Who am I? I'm a data scientist. I work across our product teams, and I've previously given talks. Whoops. Okay, so we'll start with losing the plot. But when we talk about losing the plot, what do we mean? Well, at NatWest Boxed, we are all about self-service. And the idea here is that we want to empower people to help them find the data and to draw the insights for themselves. We don't want them to depend on us, data scientists, analysts. We want them to help themselves. So, as a product owner, I want to easily get answers to the questions for my data so I can make product decisions quickly. I don't want to depend on data scientists. I don't want to depend on analysts. I want to be doing it myself. So some of the questions I ask is, am I targeting the correct client segment? Is segment A more likely to sign up for a product than client segment B? And how can I most effectively target that segment? And so when we talk about self-service analytics and helping these people, what we have is like a little graph or diagram where we are trying to serve needs across the axes of effort and SQL. So across the bottom left is low effort, easy SQL, and that's served by SQL training that we deliver to the rest of the business. In the top left, these are high effort but easy SQL, which is served by a dashboard we provide to the business so that they can get answers. In the bottom quadrant is hard SQL, low effort, which is provided by a channel that we have on Slack where people can ask us questions and we can respond to it quite quickly because it is easy, because it is quite low effort. But there you see that little gap in the top right. That is high effort, hard SQL, and we don't have anything for people right now. So that's from the business perspective. What about from an analyst perspective themselves? Well, you can think of it as this. You have a big backlog of work. You suddenly get lots of urgent requests for data from this through self-service. And as a consequence, you are overwhelmed, stressed, swamped, and drowning in work. So you're untethered, you're no longer rooted, you feel the air is rapidly leaving your body and your whole world starts to crumble. It's lots of work. But you have an idea, IRIS. And what is IRIS? So I thought I covered my arse there by having a video of the demo, but it seems the video of the demo doesn't work also. So bad luck for demo, the bad luck for videos as well. But overall, let's get cracking. Let's assume you watch the video, you'll see the video afterwards. So essentially what the video showed was a sort of chatbot front end. You ask it a question, how many customers did I have for each week last month? Normal business question. And what the product did, what IRIS did, is it translated that into a SQL query, to select blah, blah, blah from blah, 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 the right table. And what it also does, crucially, is it explains to you what the SQL query means. So it tells you what select means, it tells you what columns mean, it tells you where the from comes from, it tells you what the group by is. So not only does it give you a translation of your question into a SQL query, it explains it too. And because of that, it's not just a tool to help you query your data without needing SQL query, it also helps teaches you SQL query as well. So self-service is winning. We now have filled that gap in that quadrant to serve high effort, hard SQL problems. So let's dig a bit deeper into how we've built this. So how is Iris set up? Well, we have a Streamlit front end. We have a Llama backend. We use a Llama 3 large language model. And we use the Varna framework. And I'll touch upon why we do this next. And behind all of this, we have secure sign-on through a Istio private ingress part. So why do we make these design choices? So let's start with, why do we, with something like this, traditionally used NLP to tackle this problem, but now we have LLMs available. And so what we see is that there is a public data set where a lot of research for these type of problems takes place, and that data set is called a spider leaderboard. What you see here is the leaderboard for the top performing models for this. And what do we see across all of them? ChatGPT, 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 large language models. Not much in the world NLPs. So the research says that NLPs perform better than taking a traditional NLP approach. Why do we use Llama 3 over something like ChatGPT? Well, it's because Llama 3 is open source for commercial use. So we don't actually have to pay money. We can just use it, put it on our servers. And why do we use Varna over something like LangChain? Well, what's quite neat about Varna is it uses a vector store to hold your question answers. So you get efficient feedback and embeddings and search. And it has this feedback loop where you can say, okay, are these results correct or no? Yes, bring it back into the model, train it, say knows it for next time. No, don't do that. So it has that feedback loop, so it learns over time quite naturally. So it has some bells and whistles. What about the governance? Well, the key thing is when we talk to our privacy teams and our risk teams is, it's not trying to access more data than the average person. It's not trying to access sensitive data. It has the same access that everybody else does. The only difference is it helps you access that data more easily. You don't have to be an expert in SQL. You just need to ask it the question. It's also part of the fact that we use an Llama 3. It's hosting on our own servers. So we're not sending data to some third party and they use it to train their models. We are keeping the data and the training all in-house. So we're not sharing any private details of our customers. And it's essentially a translator. So, if it goes wrong, it's just an incorrect translation, and it's not going to execute a SQL query. So in terms of incorrect outputs, well, you just won't get any results back. And how do we get it to productionize? How do we get it in front of people? Well, we started building the app, proof of concept, using Streamlit. Actually, it started off connected to ChatGPT, but that's when we started talking privacy. That's when it started saying, is it going to a third party? So that's why we switched to Llama 3. Then what we do is we Dockerized it and pushed it to a Google Container Registry. So we have that Docker image up on our Google TCP. We then deploy it via K8s to Helm, so we can make use of the high availability that this comes with, and the pre-existing security patterns that we have. And then we release it. So we pilot it with a small group of users, let it improve, let them give us feedback before we roll out to the rest of the business. It's not out yet. We're still at this stage, but we're very close to that stage. There we go.
Do we have any questions? And let's have a round of applause. You knew I was going to ask before I said, didn't I? Do we have any questions for Avision? Straight at the back, another speaker. Let's see, you're on the spot now, Avision. Speakers asking speakers. Oh.
Hello, sorry I'm behind. Oh, you can see me, nice. So you said that the SQL, or the Iris returns with like teaching the user how to use SQL. Is the eventual goal to get no one using Iris because they're educated with SQL? Do you want to make like your users SQL power users, do you think, or?
It's a good question. Yeah. I think to get everybody to be a Power SQL user, that'd be fantastic. because then, people are even more empowered. At the end of the day, this is about empowering people to access the data and make decisions quickly. If they can write the SQL themselves, that allows us to avoid completely all these issues about hallucinations, incorrect data, incorrect outputs. Because in my discussion with privacy and risks, they're more comfortable with people making wrong decisions than algorithms making wrong decision. So I think the answer is yes. I think practically speaking, though, there are people who, from previous experience, there are people who never really get enough time to practice SQL. They don't use it day to day. So if they use it, they go on holiday, then they don't use it for a couple months. Then they forget how to use SQL. They forget the domain knowledge of the database, the schema, and stuff like that. And consequently, it's hard for everybody in the business to become power users. But yeah, it would be a good dream to have everybody be able to do it themselves.
You're a purist, Avision, aren't you? You want everyone to just talk in SQL. That would make life easier, wouldn't it? I like it. Any more questions? You've had one already. You've had one already. I'm going to come to you, but I'm just going to see anyone else. So, have you had one? No, here we go. You're in.
Thank you for the talk. So how is the LLM aware of the schema that you have?
Yeah. So what we do is we feed the schema in. So we feed the schema in by referencing the information schema dataset within our BigQuery database. Send out all that information through into the LLM. It reads it, and then what it does, it reads it as a prompt, to be honest. And then what it does, it takes that prompt, takes your question, and sees which column and which table matches your question the most. So it has that. One thing I haven't touched on is how we can make it better. And the thing is, we don't actually feed in the column descriptions for the tables. So it loses a bit of context. What we want to do next is be able to bring that information in so it's a bit more smarter.
Thank you. I've seen a hand at the very back. You're making me work, aren't you? Come on.
Thank you very much. Very interesting. I have a concern. You're using Llama, and imagine I was a malicious actor. Imagine that I was a malicious actor. In fact, I am. And I trained a Llama version that had a backdoor. And for backdoor, I mean, I don't know, something that a prompt that results in drop table. How do you protect against that? Do you envision this risk? There are constraints, these kind of things. Thank you.
Yeah, good question. So when we connect the large language model through a Llama to our database, we need to give it a service account, a GCP service account. And in that service account, we control what permissions it has. And what we give that service account is read permissions, but we don't give it write permissions. So even if it did translate a drop table, it doesn't have the permissions to drop it, so it'll error out.
Makes a lot of sense. We're going to take one more question, and all of the speakers are going to be around having beer pizza, so you can ask more, but we'll maybe take one more and then we'll wrap things up with Bruce. So was there one more question? You're good, man. You can come to every event. This makes my life really easy.
Hey, yeah, thanks for the presentation. I have a question. So because you're using open source, are dependencies an issue for you? Just because, for example, with LangChain, like every 2 weeks or so, they will now do an update and you have to update everything. Have you experienced that kind of situation with any of the packages you're using? And how do you mitigate that, just to make sure users can keep using it without issues? Thank you.
Yeah, good question. So when we deploy it into production, we first Dockerize it. And when we Dockerize it, we fix the version that we use. We fix the dependency and stuff like that. We use Poetry to help with that as well. So we use a combination of Docker and the dependencies as well, Poetry, to lock that in. And so when a new version of the Varna framework comes out, we have at our discretion the ability to update it without it affecting the actual app that's deployed.
Superb, super. Can you grab him after? We're going to draw things to a close at this point. A round of applause for Avision, especially dealing with some stress.
Thank you for all the help. Be good.